right? Leadership in times of crisis. To have this conversation, I have a very good colleague of mine all the way from Hong Kong. Let me introduce her. She's a certified coach and a trainer with nearly 20 years of experience in the learning and development space. In 2015, she founded FELIZ Consulting, which provides training and coaching for Fortune 500 companies, startups, SMEs, and individuals. Deutsche Bank, Securities and Futures Commission, Richmond, L'Oreal, DLA Piper are some of her clients she has worked with. She's also a diversity and inclusion advocate, a mother of two, a wife, a book lover, a yoga practitioner, an entrepreneur, a mentor, and my lovely guest today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Monica Hall, founder and CEO of FELIZ Consulting.
Thank you.
Monica, welcome.
Thank you so much, Azim. Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. I'm really honored to be here today.
All right. So first and foremost, thank you very much for your valuable time you're going to spend with us today. And of course, yes, we have been really up and going and with the schedule. So thank you very much for allocating this time. So Monica, the whole idea, I thought you'd have heard about the whole small introduction that did mention about leadership and the crisis. I think we can't agree more than the current situation. I think everywhere we have crisis, right? We're having a big war going on in two countries. The whole world is really disturbed. We had a pandemic last 2 years and still is in existence. We are talking about inflation. We are talking about scarcity of resources. And of course, in my country, I think we're going to a big political turmoil and everybody is impacted. So that's why I want to talk about how can leadership really play a vital role in crisis, right? So in that context, Monica, I just want to ask you, right? Let's begin with, as we all know, there are many line of thoughts, researchers' views on what leadership really is. If I ask you, what is leadership for you, Monica? What would be your input?
Well, thanks for this nice introduction. And you're so right. The world has been through so many changes and still going, wars and a pandemic, right? Unprecedented time. And I think it's really great to start this conversation with a basic question of what is leadership, right? And there's so many definitions of what leadership is. Transactional, transformational, hierarchical, right? Sometimes people confuse leadership with management, right? So there are a lot of ideas and a lot of research and different flows of thoughts. And what I feel is leadership encompasses a lot of different things. But what I see primarily of leadership is when you have a vision and you make that vision happen, right? So, and with leadership, you have certain attributes, right? So it's an easy question and we should have an easy answer. Yet, leadership is this huge thing of leading, influencing, making an impact, adapting, right? We should have one definition, but we have a variety of definitions. And what I see leadership is this inspiration, but it's also this goal and making things happen. And there are a lot of attributes that a leader should have. But what leadership is not, it's not only about the title or hierarchy, right? And I mean, and I'm sure you come across this in your job as a consultant, a trainer, facilitator, right? It's not only the leader is not only the big boss in the company. Everyone has a leadership role, right? All of us. And I believe in these attributes that a leader should have of being responsible, of being kind, of being empathetic, of being ethical, of being brave, of being open. So there are many, many characteristics of leadership. And I actually wrote a little quote to mention as well that I really love by Adina Friedman, who is a NASDAQ CEO. And she says that empowering those around you to be heard and valued makes the difference between a leader who simply instructs and one who inspires, right? So that influencing, that leading and guiding so others can do it, not only that you're micromanaging or there is that box definition of leadership. So for me, leadership is a lot of things. To answer your question, vision, goals, and these attributes that you're empowering people around you. Leaders as well.
Right. So I do totally agree, right? You can't give a clear definition, right? Every school, every CEOs can come up with, based on the experience, what the leadership is about, right? Now, you talked about vision, right? And it's really important that, yes, CEOs or the leaders have the vision for their organization, the leaders of the countries have the vision for the country, for their own people. Now, in that context, I want to ask, coming back to the corporate environment, is a state of constant crisis, because we have been going through crisis again and crisis again and again. It's not an easy job for a leader to really do, right? So it's a very, very tough job. So is constant crisis a general norm in the today's corporate world? What would you think?
Yeah. Well, I think constant crisis, in my view, has always been the norm in politics, in corporations, in academic, and in different industries. I don't think it is particular to corporates, and I don't think it's particular to politics. So I think there has always been crisis and change. Now, what we see as different this time, especially in the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, is that it's new to our life. And also it's in a globalized world, right? So we're all so connected through different cultures, through the internet, through flights and cultures, and working across places, right? Like I'm from Brazil and I'm based in Hong Kong, you're in Sri Lanka. So we're all over. And this has thrown us a little bit off guard, right? And this is the thing. We are, a lot of leaders are not used to dealing with the unknown, right? And this is a big unknown. It's a big uncertainty. And when COVID-19 first started in early 2020, people said, oh no, things will get better because we have the normalcy bias. We think, okay, this is okay. So I think that the constant change and the constant crisis management is something that has existed. And if you think we had the 1918 influenza pandemic as well, where 1/3 of the world's population, the global population, was affected by the influenza. They estimated that 17 million to 50 million people died because of the influenza. And that was about 100 years ago, right? And that was, I'm sure there was a lot of change in dealing with. Now, what makes it even harder for us is that I feel so many of us are connected, and I feel with so much technology, with so much abundance, so many people died, and so many people are still dying and suffering. So I feel the difference in our existence right now with the COVID-19 pandemic is that this crisis has made us reflect even further into our values, our purpose, our priorities. And I think this is the shift that I see in leadership, from that my way or the highway, or you do this way or my way. When I work with a lot of leaders there and managers and corporates and partners, that is just like, we used to be so black and white and so one-dimensional, and now I see this this connection. What connects? What is our purpose? What is this empathy? And what does my life really mean? And how do I want to be remembered as a leader? Right? I think that's a big question. In times of crisis, these things come stronger. Like, what does my life mean? What is my role as a leader and my legacy?
So you're leading to a very fantastic and interesting question, Monica, right? So you did say, right? You said there's a change, right? Before it was a highway, my way, now it's more into connection. So I want to ask you, do you think the term leadership is changing its meaning, because the reason why I'm asking, before we used to leadership is all about taking the team towards the goal, right? Taking the team together, leading the team to the performance, right? Those are the things we've been talking, right? We've been talking, building high performing teams, winning the game, winning the bid, etc. But now we talk more into cross-functional collaboration, empathy, compassion.
Yeah.
And do you think it's changing what we talk? At the same time, I want to just connect that one also. Like you said, the role of the leader. Are the leaders of today expected to do, something different compared to the past? What is your take in these two questions?
Yeah. I feel those are really good questions, and it makes us reflect at our own life as consultants, leaders, coaches, and I feel it is changing, because it is getting people to focus on more meaningful leading roles, even within bigger organizations. Okay, it is important to make money and to make profit, but is it the main thing? Is the mental well-being of my team more important than the financial goals? Right? So is it, how is it, what is the most important thing? So I think the pandemic, because we connect over life and tragedy and purpose, a lot of leaders have shifted and are still shifting towards the more empathetic and caring approach of leadership. Whereas I hear you, I am here with you, right? So I wish all leaders would be like that, and I wish all people we work with would be like that. It's still a work in progress, but I think it is changing. And another thing that is changing, is also more women in leadership roles, because women have been historically positioned in a underprivileged position as minority, and with more inclusion efforts and with more women in leadership, we see more of these attributes of empathy, of care. Like when we look at Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, right? She says in one of her quotes, I refuse not to be empathetic if empathy is, for me, someone can be strong and empathetic. Empathy is not a sign of weakness, right? So I think we see more women in leadership roles, like the one that the CEO of NASDAQ and Canva and politicians. And I think this is a big thing on the leadership landscape of more women in leadership roles, more minorities. And I think that is a big thing. Now you asked me another question. What was the other question?
Yeah, so the role of a leader in today's context, especially in a crisis situation, it has evolved, it has changed, right? You said it's not only about numbers, it's about well-being. So when compared to the past or the history, what sort of a role does the leader play today, especially in a crisis situation?
I think one key thing that is shifting is before, a lot of leaders, managers, CEOs, partners, there would be a contingency plan. So you have a plan and a risk management assessment. Okay, this happens, but the risk management and the plan and the strategies would be in relation to, let's say, turnover, or a death of someone, or CEO, or the reputational risks. But now the level of crisis and change is unprecedented. We didn't expect a pandemic that would affect businesses and people and families, right? So in a way, all the plans that a lot of leaders had many times are not valid. So they need to, instead of focusing only on a plan and a strategy, and of course, it is important to have a plan, a strategy, a contingency plan. But what we see in this shift now, it's more mindset and attitude change in leadership. So what is the mindset of the new leader? The mindset of the new leader is a better listener, a better communicator, empathetic, right? Being more present, right? So because the survival has come to the play of this game of leadership, it's like, okay, what if I lose my family? What if this affects my personal life and my team? So it becomes that connection of values and purpose. So I think it's now not only about the leader having a delegation strategy and a plan and a strategy, but having this mindset and attributes of leadership.
Fantastic. So let me ask you this, because you said about listening, right? It's important to listen. Like, what if a leader is not listening to its people? It can be a country, it can be an organization. He's on his own. He knows it's a crisis. He's taking his own decisions. What do you think in that particular scenario? Will that be successful, or being in strong and going in that his own ways is right? What would be your call, Monica?
Yeah, I mean,
tough question. I know that.
Yeah, it's better leaders, the best leaders, they listen. And they listen, like Stephen Covey says, they listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to reply. They're fully present, fully aware. Now, what happens, I think, is so many leaders are overwhelmed themselves, and they're not listening to their own inner beings and their own inner purpose, right? So of course, if the leader is not listening to the teams and to their needs, there will be turnover. People will leave the job. I mean, there's the great resignation nowadays. People are moving jobs and leaving companies that they were for years. So leaders need to develop that active listening. But I feel, as in that many times, people are unequipped. Even though they may have that position of leadership, they need to develop their own. The first step is their own recognition and their own self-awareness. I need to listen to my own needs, my own body. Maybe my body is under stress. I need to take a break. I need to sleep better. I need to have more work-life integration and have more time in nature, right? So I think maybe they're not listening to their teams because they're not even listening to their own self and their own bodies, right?
Fantastic.
Don't you think?
Yeah. You led to me another fantastic topic, which me and you loves a lot. You talked about self-awareness. You talked about, empathy. You know what I'm going to ask you, right? Emotional intelligence, right? I'm glad that you picked up that topic. More than ever, I think now, especially after the pandemic, many people are talking about emotional intelligence and the role, the leadership, right? How this person need to really equip emotional intelligence, right? Why this particular element of emotional intelligence has taken the center stage in the time of a crisis. What would be your take?
I mean, in the last few years, we've seen countless research on it. The emotional intelligence being the number one skills needed for leaders to develop, companies that invest on it, developing and retaining talent and growing, not only in terms of good quality and wonderful staff, but also in profits. You and I are certified emotional intelligence practitioners. I believe we walk the talk, which is a big thing for me. Like, it's not only, oh, this looks good, they walk the talk, EI. No, how do we live our lives? Right? So there is a big need for emotional intelligence. And the 5 elements of emotional intelligence, as I mentioned, self-awareness being the first one, it all starts with each one of us, right? And we talk about empathy, which is in my mind, 2 top ones. And then we have the other ones of self-regulation, social skills, and motivation, right? They're all really important. And it takes each of us wanting to develop it, wanting to work on it, to see the change in ourselves and in our organizations as leaders, and leading others, influencing others, and making a positive impact. But absolutely, EI is, I see so many clients asking for more trainings on emotional intelligence. Sometimes we call something different, like resilience or motivation. I did something recently for a client and they said, oh, let's do it motivation in times of change. And then I said, okay, we'll talk about motivation and self-awareness. And then they like it so much, they said, let's do some of the other elements of EI on empathy, social skills, self-regulation. But it is a key element. And I feel when you see McKinsey, HBR, Forbes, and publications and news showing the statistically the connection with well-being and retention and performance, people are like, okay, I want to be part of it. And I want to be a leader that develops my emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I totally agree that, you know, in a time of a crisis, it's about being so calm, maintaining your patience, inner self, understanding. These are the things I think can really help all the leaders, right, throughout the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Monica, I can recall you talked about diversity and inclusion at a point of a time when you talked about women in leadership, right?
Yeah.
How can diversity and inclusion play a role in time of a crisis? Why, especially in crisis?
I mean, it plays a fundamental role in helping times of crisis and in crisis management and in growth and development. When we have more diversity, more inclusion in companies, more women, again, to go to that gender inclusion piece, you have different point of view, you have empathy, you have different perspectives, and these are really important to shape this new leadership model that we're talking about that focus more on EI, right? Also having minorities represented or LGBTQ plus in leadership roles, and showing that regardless of where we are and our identity and our privileges, that we're connecting over the same experience, the pandemic, for instance, right? So we're all going through, we all have lost friends or have had friends or family members affected by it. So if I'm Black, white, LGBT, woman, what in any of the identities or the groups that I fit in or I consider myself a part of my identity, we all have this common connection, but yet we have unique perspectives too. So it's fundamental for leaders and corporations to have more diversity, to bring more inclusion in the business, to bring better leaders, to bring more belonging in the organization, so everybody can bring their full selves to work. And as in the whole diversity and inclusion can be a whole another podcast.
Absolutely.
You know, we can talk about unconscious bias and gender biases and all. We do number 2.
Absolutely. Let's take that particular, because why I asked, it's really important that, right, embrace the diversity, because it can help people. It can help people to generate new ideas, collaborate, you know, problem solving, because it's not anymore one person game. It's not me, it's not I, it's we, it's us.
Exactly.
So that's why I asked that question, right? So Monica, I think, you know, when you talk, this is the love part, which I love in podcasts. The time flies very quickly when we have interesting questions. So here my last question, and I'd like to have that particular, you know, as a takeaway for our listeners, right? If you can give me about 3 points, what would be some key points and takeaways to our listeners for them to better lead in times of a crisis? It can be a father, it can be a mother, it can be a CEO, it can be even a country's president. What would be simply 3 steps, 3 tips?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I know it's a bit difficult, but I always put people in front of the last one.
Yeah, you put us on the spot. I did put some ideas on paper here, but you're throwing me off script, which, like you said, I like it as well, because it's making an authentic and real conversation, which I'm really enjoying as well. I think the first thing, Azim, is start with yourself, right? Change, if you want to change the world, starts with yourself, Mahatma Gandhi. Work on your self-awareness, work on what are your priorities, what your purpose. So that's number 1. It's any leadership development, it starts with us in times of crisis or any time. Another one is develop your active listening skills. Listen with the intent to understand. Listen attentively, be present, right? Not rushing, just be open and caring. And the listen ties in with empathy, which is feeling with others, being together in this connection. I think this is even more important in this day and age, in times of change. And if I can add a number 4, walk the talk, right? Walk the talk. So when we talk, oh, this person's not a good leader, this, or I would have done better, so do better, right? So what can we do in our power that we can do better as a leader, leading colleagues, leading friends, leading family, leading up, leading down, in any role we are? Change starts with each of us, and we need to walk the talk. So that's some key takeaways.
Thank you very much, Monica. So ladies and gentlemen, that's the time what we have for today. My key takeaway is something really unique, because I always love this point of listening, because we in Sri Lanka personally go through that. Our leader is not listening to us. People are so much of the streets struggling for a change. Leader is not listening. So that's why I said listening is really important, leader. So my takeaway is that I hope our listeners got plenty of takeaways from Monica. Thank you very much for that. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you in my heartfelt gratitude to Monica, founder and CEO of FELIZ Consultancy. You get connected to her all the platforms. She's very friendly. She's very helpful, and she puts some lovely content on the social media, on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook. And of course, don't forget to log on to
Thank you so much, Azim.
Anytime.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here. And I really hope this is of value to your listeners.
As I mentioned, don't forget to log on to www.FELIZ Consulting, FELIZ Consulting.com, to explore some of fantastic work Monica does. You'll be great. And of course, she'll be very much happy to help you guys also. So with that, Monica, thank you very much for your valuable time. It has been an amazing conversation. I know it's a very short, that's why I keep it very short, because it's people like to listen a short conversations. I think they have a lot of input. Once again, thank you very much, and looking forward to see you in another episode and another season.
I hope so too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.